Hello, and welcome to the podcast. Let's talk why representation matters across the medias. My name is David the Smiley, your host, and today I have with me Ayal Basen. And today we'll be talking about Jewish representation in all forms of media and how it has impacted the way people see each other. And let me give you a brief introduction, real quick. Ayal Basen is a Jewish American born and raised in the state of New York. They are a non binary artist and actor with a passion for creating music fueled by real life experiences. Their new single is about transforming anger and pain into a powerful declaration of self worth. This new hit single is their first of their debut EP, Catharsis. Ayal isn't just creating music, they're creating a space for vulnerability, empowerment, and connection. In conversation with Ayal will be myself, David the Smiley. I am an actor, cosplayer, Q&A host, panelist, and more. But first, I would like to thank you all for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy today's conversation. And without further ado, let's get started. So,
Hi, hello
my friend,
everyone. Thank you for joining.
my first question for you today is, how are you?
That's an easy one. I'm doing super well. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you all so much for being here.
Well, thank you so much for being my first guest on this podcast. I am really looking forward to it and doing more, obviously. We will definitely link up to do another one for sure. So, on to our next question. And again, during the introduction, I did say that you were born in New York State. So, what can you tell us? Where did you grow up? Tell us about New
So
York.
I,
Like, go ahead.
okay, so I wasn't born in New York, New York. I was born in Albany, New York, the state's capital. They're very, very different. Albany, New York is New York City's much duller, less attractive cousin. Um, and it that really fueled my imagination because I always wanted to be somewhere else. That was always my aspiration was to get out of where I was from. And so I was always creating worlds that I wanted to be in my imagination, creating different characters from distant lands, writing stories. Um, and it was always my escape from the dullness that surrounded me.
No. Okay, that's understandable. I mean, no one wants a dull life. Like you say, you have to be the glitter you want to see in the world, right?
Absolutely.
So, and personally, I believe in that statement wholeheartedly. And I just want to say, like, thank you for just like continuing to be that. Now, I mentioned in the introduction that you are an actor. So, what got you interested in theater?
Um, that is a good question. So I've always had a very strong imagination, like I just said, because I never really felt at home where I was. And I've always wanted to be someone else or somewhere else. I think a lot of queer people and non-binary people can understand that. Um, and there's always this sense of dysmorphia, and that can feel, and you can feel have that dysmorphic sentiment in yourself and also where you are and how you just feel like you don't fit in. So I always felt like I was acting, trying to be something or someone that I wasn't. Um, and there's pictures of me putting on wigs and costumes and performing for the family. There's videos of me performing Britney Spears when I was like 4 years old that I hope someday don't leak, but um, they're saved in a hard drive, so hopefully those are hard to hack.
Hopefully.
And hopefully. Um, and so I was always a performer, always a creative kid, always had that spark within me, but I was shy. I never really wanted to do it for someone who wasn't related to me or someone I didn't know. Um, but I think a lot of Jewish kids can relate to this. I had a very pushy auntie, and her name is Marcy. And I also, my mom's a friend at the time when I was 13. Her name was Iris. She was her coworker. And they both were, I was 13 at the time, and they both were like, you have to audition for theater. You are born for the stage. You have a like just a natural inclination for performing, and you have to do something with it. Um, and I was like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't know. Like you have to do it. Like they just kept pushing me and pushing me and pushing me, and like, I think not just the Jewish kids in the world, but like anyone can relate. It's like when you have like a very pushy auntie, like you can't say no, like you just gotta eventually acquiesce. Um, and so I did it. I went and I auditioned and I timidly sang Colors of the Wind. It was my first time singing for someone that I wasn't related to. And to my surprise, I got into my ninth grade production of Hairspray, and the rest is history. I was bit by the theater bug, and I've been doing theater ever since.
So okay, so how long has this been doing theater? Like, say maybe like 5, 6, like 10 years? Like how long? Like how when did you start and how long has it been?
So I'm, so 13 years I've been doing theater.
Wow.
Yeah, if I do,
And I've been
I
like
just did the math in my head. Be proud of me, y'all.
gays and math sometimes don't go along, unfortunately. So now, okay, so you've done been doing theater for like 13 years. Honestly, that's longer than me being a cosplayer and a host. So like kudos to you. Um, but also you touched on this a little while you were like talking. Um, so theater aside, how was life like for you growing up Jewish? Personally, me, I don't know as much about the culture as I would like to, but I feel there's like more that's like to it. So what can you tell me?
Um, I mean, it's a lot. There's a lot to it that we can get into. Um, so I am going to break it down as much as I can.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I would say I come from a culturally Jewish background and not a religiously Jewish background because they're two different things. Because being Jewish is can be comprised of three things. It's a religion, a culture, and an ethnicity. Um, and you can embody all three of those things. You can embody one of those things, just two of them, any of those three. So I am ethnically Jewish and culturally Jewish, but I wouldn't say that I'm a religiously Jewish person. I very much struggled with the religious aspects my whole life, and that is something that I don't think we have time to delve into. Maybe for the hour long, we'll get into that. So I come from a household that was very big on Jewish tradition. Like, think of the Fiddler on the Roof, like tradition, tradition. Like that was the household, and it's like, and and I'm someone who's from a very young age always asked, like, why do we do these things? Um, and they would always ask, like, that's just because we do. Um, and I was never really accepting of that answer, um, because I always wanted to know why and get to the bottom of the reasons, and get and really delve into why we do the things we do, why they're important, and not just doing it because it's what our mother, all going all the way back to like the time of the temple in Jerusalem did. That was never satisfactory for me. Um, and that was mostly my Jewish upbringing because my mother was a teacher, a religious school teacher. And so she was very big on Jewish education and teaching Hebrew. She had lived in Israel and put me into Jewish day school. And so embracing Jewish culture and tradition and the language of Hebrew was very important in our household. We grew up with a kosher household, which are Jewish dietary laws, um, and embodying those traditions and those rules and laws were very important in our house. And if you veered away from them, you best come prepared to fight. Let's just say.
Really?
And yeah, I think that's where I get my strong argumentation skills from. Um, and and so I always felt like I was negotiating between the broader American culture, which is very Christian centered. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone, um, because I went from Jewish school from I was from like the time I was like a baby to I was 8 when I went to public school. And the only world I knew was the Jewish world. So and then from 8 until today, I'm in like the broader Christian dominated world. Um, and I'm very more broadly Christian influenced life. And the broader world here in America is Christian influence. Everyone celebrates Christmas, everyone celebrates Easter, all the public holidays are Christian. Um, and
Sadly.
so, huh?
I said, sadly, they're all like Christian holidays, all and not only are they just Christian holidays, they're literally all about money grab because
Hmm.
most of these like holidays are.
Yes. And the broader Christian world only really knows about, in that vein, the broader Christian world only knows about Hanukkah because it falls around the same time as Christmas. And Hanukkah has be kind of been co-opted by this Christmas ideology of presents and money, whereas that's not really the idea around Hanukkah. Like the idea of Hanukkah is that it's the redemption of the temple after it was ransacked by the Syrian Greek soldiers, and that's really what Hanukkah is about. But the meaning of Hanukkah has been lost over time because of the adoption of these more um, like religio-capitalistic beliefs. Um, and I just saw my music teacher joined. Hi Sue. Um, she can't respond, but I give her a shout out.
Oh,
Um, but it's very interesting. There's been like more representation over time, and in public school, in the state of New York, we have a very large Jewish population, and so we do get our more major holidays like the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur off. Um, but it is very much like a Christian dominated world. And so you always have like a sense of othering, that you're not part of the main group, and you always have a sense of I need to explain myself to the broader population.
which you shouldn't have to, truly.
Hmm.
Now, just to explain, so again, what we're talking about is representation across media. And for those of you that may not know, actually, this month, although it is AAPI representation, it is also Jewish American Heritage Month. So for those of you that did not know that, that is a cool little fact as well. And so this podcast, we're talking about like the different representations. And so I definitely, this is why we're touching on the fact of what is it like being Jewish and like the culture? What is the difference between Jewish culture and like what we see in the world today? Because predominantly, a lot of us only see or hear about Jewish people literally, like most of them can, most of us will confuse them for Amish or like how they're like all secluded and everything, like the secluded world. And it's like, well, no, like that's not how people actually are. And one thing I will say, so now you all know I'm a cosplayer, so I'm a big nerd. And I'm gonna ask you this. Ayal, and I do apologize. So, now, at what point did you notice the representation of Jewish people in comics, manga, television, movies, or anywhere for that matter? And before we go into it, I just want to say there are a couple of there are a few Jewish superheroes and villains. Actually, some of them are villains out there. For those of you that may not know, Magneto is Jewish. If you don't remember, just look at how he had to deal with the Holocaust, like literally all of that. That's his origin right there. Harley Quinn, Atom Smasher, Batwoman, Kitty Pryde, and those are just like a few of like the comic characters that a lot of people know. However, even Firestorm is considered Jewish, but here's the thing: Firestorm is a combination of two people, Ronnie Raymond and Martin Stein, and Martin is the Jewish one, obviously. But what can you tell me? Like, when did you first start to see like the representation?
It's a very good question. I think I was maybe 11, 12, 13, somewhere in that vein. Um, I think it was seeing Fran Fine on The Nanny. That was my first instance of seeing Jewish representation in media.
Really?
Um, yeah, she was so unabashedly Jewish, like very unafraid to be who she was and let her Yiddishisms out. And it actually got me interested in learning more about my own culture, um, and learning more Yiddish, which for those who don't know, Yiddish is the language spoken by Eastern European Jews. It's a mixture between the languages of Eastern Europe, either Russian or Polish or German, and Hebrew. And that is um, commonly spoken amongst a large proportion of American Jews, but not all American Jews come from Eastern Europe. There are large proportions that don't. Um, just slight caveat there. Um, anyway, um, so it got me interested in learning more about my own language and my own culture. And I remember going with my grandmother to the bookstore, and she got me all sorts of books on Yiddish and Yiddishisms and Jewish culture in America. And that was really my first exposure to to Jewish representation in media in America. I mean, of course, there's Fiddler on the Roof, but that was my first real memory of it, I would say. Yeah. So thanks, Fran Drescher.
We love Miss Fran Fine. So now this is what I'm going to do. I am going to segue into a different portion of it. So, as we all know, you are a music artist. So, what
I
can
am.
you tell our audience today about your creative process as a musician?
Okay. So, shameless plug, I just dropped a song. It's called Love Bomb. It's now streaming on every single music platform in the world. So, Love Bomb, it's under my name, and David will plug the link. Um, and it is a song about getting love bombed, which, for those of you who don't know, it is a form of manipulative affection. Um, it is when someone says they'll love you, they'll be there forever for you, and then all of a sudden they disappear or they're just not interested in you anymore. It's like very intense, short-term affection, and then they just go away. And this is inspired by a real life story that happened to me, um, which for the sake of time, I won't get into. But my process is really inspired by real life stories. I'm always looking for ways to tell my own stories and to convey them in ways that I think will be palatable to the world. So for this song, for instance, I started writing it shortly after the experience happened to me. Um, and I knew about the idea of love bombing for a long time. but I was looking for a way to connect the idea of love and the idea of bomb. And then all of a sudden, that old axiom, that expression, if all is fair in love and war, or all is fair in love and war, came to me. And then the second half of the first lyric came to me, then who is the one keeping score? Because I realized that in truth, there is nothing fair in love or war, and they can both feel exceptionally destructive, and can and are exceptionally destructive, I should say. Um, and love can feel oftentimes like emotional warfare. Um, so I like to rely heavily on literature and philosophy and music. I have a strong liberal arts background. That's my academic background. And so I'm constantly looking to existing pieces of art and humanities for inspiration. Um, and looking for ways that I can explore and expand upon the existing canon and remix it and remaster it and to create something that speaks to our present day and our present condition in society.
Well, thank you for sharing your experiences and just sharing how, like, one, how your creative process is, and two, like, how this has, like, also, like, had an effect on you. But you turn, what's the phrase I'm looking for? When life gives you lemons, make lemonade, kind of like that.
Precisely. I'm because I'm not one to just sit and wallow in my own sadness. The whole purpose of this EP, and this is just the first taste of it, is to come out of a very dark period of my life and turn it into something brighter and greater, and to tell the world really that you can turn whatever darkness that you're under, this whatever dark cloud, into something better and use it as fuel, because you all have a light within you, and it's all about finding it and using that light to occlude whatever period of depression you're living under, because I too was living in it for 2 years. And it was music and songwriting that saved me. So it's all about finding that spark and that glitter that lives within you.
And for some people, that is actually really hard for them to do, to find like that spark of life. And it can come from heartbreak, it can come from trauma, or just even anything that can just stop you from like creating. And as creatives, we have to actually give ourselves like that mental time. Actually, for those of you that also don't know, it's Mental Health Awareness Month too. And we have to give ourselves like that time to just break and relax. I'm also coming off of just like a literally like my last like 4 days from like Thursday until Sunday. Well, honestly, today too. I've just been like going, 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 going. So I'm actually myself. I will be taking a break for a little bit too. Even though I'm still going to be working on stuff, I'm not going to be going as like full force as I've been for the last few days. So I am happy to like come out of that and like share like that you come out cocoon and you like embrace like who you truly are.
Absolutely, because it's that is the only thing that's kept me going. Um, is that, and that's why I've called my EP Catharsis, because that's how I felt in the process of writing all of these songs. It's been very cathartic, so catharsis isn't that big of a leap there. Um, and just really writing about all of these huge dark clouds that have these, I should say, cinder blocks, is the better metaphor there, that have been upon me for, I mean, for longer than 2 years, but this period of depression has forced me to be very contemplative and forced me to write and to get to the bottom of all of these things that have been bothering me. Um, and I'm hoping that by sharing these stories of struggle and trial and tribulation with the world, others will be able to learn and grow too. And like you said in my intro, I'm not putting these songs out there just for the sake of creating music, but I also want to create a space for discussion, and for sharing our traumas, because we all have trauma in our lives. And by sharing it and getting it out there, we've started the first step on our journey to healing. And that's the world that I want to create. And I think if we all start our journey to healing, we're going to create a better world.
We most certainly will. And one other thing, so I'm going to move into the next question. So, one thing I will say is we've talked about Jewish representation, we've talked about you as a musician. Now, one thing I will ask you is have you ever felt personally represented in media, especially as a non binary
No. Um, that's an
person? I,
easy one.
I figured, and even I'll say like there isn't a lot of non-binary representation, and it's some of it isn't done so well, and even you can say like with trans representation, especially in like media, like in like television series and movies, some are done well, some are not done so well, but the ones that are actually done pretty good have a fan base and it just like it's out there, but you won't
Mm-hmm.
know until you actually go and find it because it's not like, oh, okay, like here this is plastered everywhere. Even though today is Memorial Day and I apologize for this. You'll see Captain America like plastered somewhere before you see trans non-binary representation plastered somewhere. America. So like you'll see that kind of representation like that. And again, I apologize. Like just do realize that that was like a joke. If you laughed, you laughed. If you didn't, I'm sorry. Just do know I'll bring a smile to your face later. So, but the thing is like you don't see that representation often. And so I actually did a presentation not too long ago at Comic Palooza, and I talked about Black representation in comics. One thing, and I actually mentioned this to you, is that I found a Black non-binary character um, for the presentation, and I wasn't looking; they just kind of popped up, and I was just like, "Oh, oh, really? We have this." And I haven't. I'm gonna have to do a full deep dive into like finding more characters like that. So you personally, you've never felt like represented in like media at all. So if you could, how would you change that?
I think I'm starting the first step as I'm becoming my own figure in media. I've created my own music career, and Love Bomb is just the first step. Um, and I am going to, I am not, I'm going to, I am creating my whole own music persona. Ayal is the embodiment of everything I've wanted to see in media. They are a androgynous, non-binary pop star, pop rock star. Um, and they are living their truth unabashedly. They are going to embody every aspect of their identity, both the Jewish and the non-binary, the femme, the mask, it doesn't matter. And that is how I'm going to change it. I'm going to be the glitter I wish to see in the world, and that's how I'm going to fix it.
Well, we love that. And I'm happy to be able to see the glitter that you started like showing out to the world.
Thank
And
you.
for those of you that do not know, you can actually find their song Love Bomb on Spotify, YouTube, and Apple Music. Is there one more I'm missing, or is that every one of them?
No, there's Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon Music, there's Deezer, there's Tidal. Every single streaming platform that exists in the universe, my song is there.
Okay, good, good. Because I'm like, I know I remember like you posted it and I'm like, okay, I know those three, but I'm like, what else is there? And I didn't write it down. So silly me, I forgot y'all. Um, that's
It's
just
easier to say
that's
anywhere you consume music, you can find my song.
good. Anywhere you consume music, you can find their song. So we're gonna go into some more questions. Now, I asked you if you ever felt like personally represented, but what is your biggest inspiration, honestly?
My biggest inspiration, well, you know me
Mm-hmm.
personally, so you know the answer to this already. Um, it's Beyonce. That she is my biggest idol, because she is someone who is doing what she wants and living her truth unabashedly. Um, and she is getting to the heart of subject matter that matters most to her and creating music that speaks to the heart of that subject matter using genre bending, beautiful melodies and tropes and lyrics that make you want to cry. And her music is also very academic and gets to and reaches back both centuries and decades and takes you on a long winding journey and doesn't even make you realize you took a music history class. um and that's what like her latest albums have been about, and it's all about embracing your sheer authentic truth. um and it was with her album Renaissance that I started writing my own music. And you know, and Break My Soul, she said like, release your spirit, release your vibe, release your job, forget. And that's what I did. Essentially, I followed her advice. Um, so I thank you, Beyonce, for everything that you have done for me. You've inspired me to live my sheer authentic truth. Um, and I owe you a lot for that. I have a lot of other inspirations, but she is probably my biggest, I would say.
Now, although we've had this conversation before, I will say that I remember Beyonce for the whole Sasha Fierce era, for the Renaissance era. I remember her in Destiny's Child with Kelly Rowland and Michelle. So I've seen all of it. So I'm happy like that she's grown and that she's like come out and just kind of been like force, this force to be reckoned with in like the music industry. So I'm happy to hear the like your explanation, although I've heard it several times. Um,
I never shut up about her, by the way.
they don't, not at all. But that's okay. That's okay. You're not the only one. I know there are several people that do the exact same thing. And I'll sit and I'll listen, and then I'll go turn on some other music too that's non Beyonce, which is why I'm not allowed to have the aux cord on road trips.
We've never road trip together. Don't spread lies.
No, no, no. This is for other people in their road trips. I'm like, I will like play everything else but Beyonce. However, if we do go on a road trip together, um, we will have to make a playlist and it has to like stick to that playlist. So, and it depends on how far we're driving. That I will say. Because I like to listen to certain stuff. You're not going to bombard the road trip with Beyonce. But I will say that as a Lady Gaga fan, I was there for telephone and video phone. Like I was there for it. I was living for it. Just so you know. Just so you know.
Yeah, and those are fantastic songs. Um, and I cannot speak badly about any single Beyonce song in a public forum, but I think Beyonce's more recent stuff in her last 3 to 4 albums is more about embracing to the core of who she is And that's more about my artistry as well.
Okay. Well, thank you. Um, so as I segue into like the next question, as we're getting towards the end, what is an important fact that you could tell our audience about Jewish American heritage? Like, what's something that we don't know or that we haven't touched on yet?
Oh, there's books, and I'm like staring at my bookshelf right now. Let's see. Um, I think I'll expand upon something that I touched upon earlier, which is that being um, Jewish American is an immensely complicated beast. Um, like like I said earlier, it's a culture, an ethnicity, and a religion. Um, and we have internal struggles within our own communities on what that means, and who then gets to consider themselves as Jewish. Um, but I don't know, where do I want to take this? Um, and so it's like we love to debate. I think that is one of the pinnacles of Jewish culture. And we love a good argument for the sake of argument. And if you ever come over to my house for holiday dinner, you will know that we just love to debate for the sake of debating. Um,
Oh no, the Beyonce
and
debate
no,
between us. The Beyonce
yeah,
debate between us is definitely something you will debate about every day, as long as I mention it.
yeah. But she doesn't come up at holiday dinner too often. Um, and And I will say that we're not all like what's considered Ashkenazi, which are people who come from Eastern Europe. There are those who are descended uh, from North Africa, from the Middle East, from Latin America, from Spain, from Eastern Africa who have Ethiopian or Eritrean or Sudanese ancestry. But we are all Jewish. We're immensely diverse community, both in thought and religious tradition, in terms of is what you would consider skin color. But we are all Jewish and all descended from the same line that stretches back to Abraham over 5,000 years ago. Um, and that's something that I think is left out of the conversation very often. Um, and that I have Jewish friends who some are descended from like the broader Middle East, who are from Yemenite ancestry, and some are from Ethiopian ancestry, and I myself am from more Eastern European ancestry. But we're all Jewish, and we all recite the same prayers, but we all might look a bit different, or say the prayers a bit differently. But we all have um, the same Jewish ancestry, and we're all proud of our same heritage. And that is the beauty of being Jewish, that we all come together and we all support one another regardless of our minute differences.
Oh, thank you for touching on that. That's stuff I didn't know. Like, I'll sit and do research on different cultures and stuff, but I'm like, I don't know everything. And it's hard to like sit and go through everything. There's so much more out there that like you can accidentally skip it, and then it's like, oh yeah, here's another fact about this, and you're like, oh, oh, okay, I didn't know that. And I actually bumped into a, what was it? I think two or three. I think it was a small group of Jewish fellows here in Houston, and one had on a yarmulke. Am I saying that right?
Yeah, yarmulke is right. So that's the Yiddish term for it. So
Okay.
there's Yiddish, there's Hebrew, and there's like Ladino. Those are the three main Jewish languages.
Mm-hmm.
So Yiddish is what's spoken by Eastern European Jews. Ladino is spoken by Jews from Spanish origins. So yarmulke is from Yiddish, and so kippah is what we would call it in Hebrew. But go on.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Cool. No, I didn't know that. Interesting. So, as we go on, I think I skipped over this question. So, again, before we end, I do want to ask, how would you inspire people today?
Um, how would I would inspire people today? It's a toughie.
It is
Um,
because again, as
so
creatives, we have to find our own inspiration.
I think how I would inspire people today is I think I'm going to bring back something I said earlier, which is don't be afraid to live your truth. Even if that truth is absurdly dark, because it's still part of who you are. We all go through dark periods of our lives. And by being honest about how we're doing in our day-to-day lives, I think that is completely necessary. I think there's a toxic positivity in our culture today. And I think we need to be more honest about how we're all doing and how we're all feeling. And if we're not feeling well mentally, I think it's important that we convey that with someone we trust. I mean, it doesn't have to be the bank teller or the baker, but with someone we trust, and letting people know that we're not doing well. And I think that's an important step in our healing process, and not pretending that everything is okay.
I fully agree with that. Like it's needed. Like we do need to. Someone has to let us know, and we have to let someone else know. You can't just do it all alone by yourself. Um, that's definitely one of the biggest like things, especially like I'm kind of getting there too, where I'm like, I know I can't do it by myself anymore. Like I'm usually a one man show, but I'm like, I need the help. I need the help from people. So no, like it's needed. Now, as
Exactly.
we get ready to as we get ready to conclude, can you tell everyone like what do you have coming up? Do you have a release date for a new song? Are you going to be acting in anything? Like what is it you have coming up, especially for those that are in New York State?
All right, so I am presently rehearsing for a production of Cabaret, which, if we're talking about Jewish American Heritage Month, this show, for those that don't know, takes place during the rise of the Nazis to power in Berlin, Germany, in the early 1930s. And I play Bobby, the slutty dancer. So this show, it's actually the opposite of most musicals. Is a very lighthearted, campy beginning, and then a very dark, depressing end as the Nazis take full control over Berlin, um, and start their full campaign of extermination of all they deemed inferior by 1933. I'm going to be in that weekend of June 13th. So that's what I have coming up most directly, and that's what I'm working on right now. So I'm very excited about that. Um, and then I'm also presently working on my second song with my producer and my co-composer, Sue, if she's here. And so that's what I'm working on right now. And trying to bring together my full EP. So if you would like to come upstate and see me in Cabaret, it's going to be the weekend of Father's Day. I would love to see you there. And if not, I will catch you in the digital realm. And thank you so much for tuning in.
All right, all right. Again, thank you all for listening today, and a big thank you, Ayal, or taking the time out of your day to sit down with me. If you would like to see more of Ayal, check out their Instagram, Ayal, and it's spelled a little different. It's spelled AyalTmatters. Ayal, that matters. Their YouTube, Ayal Basen, and go listen to their song Love Bomb on Spotify. I listen to it like it's been on repeat for quite some time. Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, basically any platform that streams music, you can find them. If you like today's interview, don't forget to subscribe. Also, be sure to check out my website, davidthesmiley.com, for more upcoming podcasts, events I'll be attending, interviews, and more. Again, my name is David the Smiley, and thank you all for being here today. Have a wonderful day, and I look forward to doing it again.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
No problem. Thank you. Now I got to figure out how to end this library. Okay, there we go. So now I'm going to end this. Bye, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.